Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and we're here live on highvibe.tv for After Dark, the spiritual talk show brought to you live late at night here at the High Vibe TV studios. If you've not checked out highvibe.tv yet, make sure that you check it out. We've got an awesome app on Roku, Apple TV, iOS, and Android, and our awesome website, highvibe.tv, where we have exclusive content and free content. But that exclusive content is what keeps us rolling here to bring you awesome shows like this live. Tonight, we got some awesome guests. We got Sarah Paasch in the house, and we got Kim Tabay, who she's been on the show before, but we don't have her painting tonight.
Not tonight.
We're going to get deep.
Give me a break.
You know, before we just got live here, we were talking about virginity, virgin energy, losing virginity so much. You know, I was talking tonight about how I think a lot of the energy that's come around, you know, the thing about a virgin is it's pure, or I use the word untainted. But there's something about moving right now into energy that's fresh instead of going back into, I think, a lot of old stuff and trying to retrieve some sort of, I don't know. Like I used the analogy today of they redo all these movies now, and they're never as good as the original.
Never as good as the first.
Yeah, or like how Disney's redoing all of the movies in like real life form.
They're all
I feel like-
recycled.
Yeah.
And they're not the same.
No, but I don't know. What do
To
you guys
us.
feel about that energy of like, I think this is hard for people because there's so much pull to just go back, and it's safe. It's safe in the back, but really it's unsafe.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I actually did go back to the story about my virginity today. but what was important about that is it was important to go back to see where like that story was actually replaying itself out in this way that was giving me that story back, because it was tainted in this way where I couldn't see what that created and that pattern and that perception. And so Virgin, like, you know, the Vestal Virgins or the archetype of Virgo, it's about, you know, at the end of the day, she comes home to herself. The goddess comes home to herself. So it's like a reclamation of your relationship within oneself. And I feel like that's the energy right now, is like going back to like the really old stories of where we lost, like, or where we defined ourselves in this way that was completely based off patriarchy and conditioning and, or, you know, trauma, like rejection trauma. And then now we're like, oh wait, that was never my truth. Like I interpret it that way because at that point that's natural. But now I'm like, no. And I'm like getting my virginity back, like getting the story back, I guess, about like that clean slate. And then yes, going forward. So it's not about going back and like maintaining something you have or like fixing it up or cleaning it up. Like, I don't think that's the energy. I think it's definitely like clean energy going forward. But before you do, there's been this like deep spiralic, like untangling and rewriting that I'm getting.
Doing inventory.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Kim, because actually when you do a painting all the time, it's a virgin, you know, canvas, right?
100.
But it's like, do you ever go back to old paintings and try and repaint it a different way?
Honestly, a lot of these paintings all around here is a culmination of things I started in 2006. And Eve, you see Eve over there on the glass. I mean, she took me years to finish. So there, like I do know when something is still working itself out, and why I'm really connected to a collection that I have, which does tell a story of where I was at, and I feel deeply connected to those because I did start on a feeling. I never really knew what it was going to become, and it was working out a space of trying to translate what my like anxiety, my anxiousness, what I was trying to work out in my life, trying to get to the deep layers. And what's crazy is that, like, you know, looking back and finally being in a space where I've allowed myself to look at everything that I've done, to even find out I put myself without even knowing in a lot of these paintings, and to admit, like, yeah, that warrior, that's me. And you know, this person feeling like she's drowning, yeah, that was me. And it is a space of ownership, of even admitting that I sat in a space of being truly present in my own feelings. But even after making them, I didn't even realize they were truly about me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
like,
once it's complete, though,
yes.
it's not like you go back and go, I'm gonna add some more color.
No, because I'm emotionally have
Right?
a relationship with her.
And also, I'll say, like, I don't do art to the level that Kim does it, but just in the art that I have done, in the paintings where I hit the point where I was like, it's so good, but then I invoked like my desire to like continue it or like add or edit something, and I there's been so many times where I've been like, fuck, I wish I would have stopped
it up.
like 3 strokes ago when I knew I was done. And there is something about that quality of when you're painting or when you're doing something, that's where art's such a beautiful teacher, because you're like, you got to honor it.
You got to honor
it's not
the
about you.
imperfections.
Yeah.
You know? And so honoring the imperfections and like the stroke that I was like, oh, I hated that. So then I would walk away and then I would approach her in a new space and I'd be like, I love that. That actually became its spice. That became what separates it from everything else. And so it did, like my paintings did mirror back my own imperfections. So if I could appreciate it in a canvas or in a field full of flowers and a crazy looking tree, but like, man, that tree at sunset has this, it falls beautifully, so it has taught me about appreciating all the imperfections in life. So yeah, there are paintings to where I'm like, she's still speaking to me, but when I know I'm done, I'm done. And
but like you walk away thing.
The walk away thing.
The
you
walk
have to
away
walk
thing.
Away.
So right now it's like this energy of like, be willing to like fully walk away. And like, if you go back, it won't be because you like planned at this point I'll go back to it, and then it's like no, like you got to honor if it's the time to walk away.
Yeah, and that's then, like during my segments of There's an Art to Life, when I paint, that's the space in which I want to really integrate how art is wellness and just another language of how life works. And Craig's here all the time, and I'm always in a space of like, just remember this looks a lot different up close than it does from a distance, and so does life. So when you're in this, things are transitioning, I'm emotional, and oh my God, like what's going on, and you're drowning. So just like in life, this stroke that looks so wompy and da-da-da-da, from like up close, you're tearing it apart and you're dissecting it. But if you just look at it from a distance, it's doing what it needs to do. Right? It's just about how we're defining it and how caught up in all of it we're in. So it's just same thing, symbolic of life. Like when you know something's happening and these energies are telling you something's happening, don't go into panic fucking mode and try to cover up the dead body. And that's why I tell my students, you can't go in and take a bunch of paint and just try to white it out. That's not life. You got to work with it.
Even, in school, the whiteout pen is
worked.
very clear that you whited it out. It's not like,
so
you know what I mean?
Dead body is
And even
still
when
there.
you did the eraser on the pencil, like no matter how much you did, I would try and do it so perfect, to make sure the teacher didn't know.
That's
I
like
didn't
Bob
do it.
Ross.
That's what they teach you though, like in pharmacy school, is like you actually have to learn, part of the schooling is you literally get tested on drawing one line through if you cross something out, or like in higher level math education.
Yeah, same in the military too.
They have to see your mistakes.
Clean.
Yeah, they have to see a clean draw of like your mistake, and if you try to scribble it out, it actually is like points knocked off, because you can't they have to see your whole process. Yeah, so it's like appreciating the process and like appreciating like, I had to go through that. Like I thought this was the way to go, and this equation, like in math, is where my mind's going. But then like drawing that line, be like, no, I caught where I kind of like went too far down one road. Yeah. And now I'm like, oh wait, go back to where I like went too far and like start there. Or like, but I mean, the process for painting is probably different, but
no,
I like
but
that.
It's a reference point.
Right.
I mean, that's why like Bob Ross is my hero. It's like, okay, I splashed, oh, fuck it. It's a tree, or it's a pterodactyl now. Like,
I like that he's your hero.
Something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, we've had this conversation before, and you're talking about the layers of trees. Same thing like with my process of painting. It's like, I couldn't get to this point, this really bold point, without taking my time, being patient, allowing the layers to organically do what it needs to do. And it takes me from looking at it from different perspectives, and then honoring the fact that that was a blank canvas when I started. And just because I allowed myself to sit in a space to create it, I'm so capable of not only creating a painting, what else am I capable of? Maybe I could create a new relationship. Maybe I could create a new, thinking of approach to this problem. Maybe I could create a new existence.
Yeah, and I think this is a lot of energy that, like Sarah said, we do have to kind of go back to remember, to get a lot of lessons in life. But there's something about going back to the Virgin, because even though I guess you could call it old religious energies, or what kind of painted the Virgin of once you lose it, that you're just tainted forever, like, oh.
Right, but that's patriarchy.
Right? So it's like, oh my gosh. But there's something, because I don't drink alcohol, so when I go to, a place, I'll be like, yeah, I'll take a Sprite. And I'm like, oh, what? And vodka or whatever? And I'm like, no, Virgin. Like, oh, okay. But there's something about Virgin that's about being non-toxic. Even though that's kind of a patriarchal thing, but there is something about Virgo, about cleanliness, about getting rid of any of the physical toxicities of life, or anything that is out of alignment for you know what I mean? Right? Like, because the whole idea originally from that, I mean, the Virgin energy is like, it's like, okay, that's when I was naive or pure, or however you want to look at it. And then this whole idea of when you lose your virginity, we're talking about sex, people. It's like, oh my gosh, unless you were married, right? There's like something attached to it of when it's okay, and something that if anything else around it wasn't during that one point, it's not okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually it's like redefining the toxicity and the filtering system, because Virgo is like the filtering system. It's ruled by Mercury. So it's our mental filtering system. And that's where it's like the purity is conditioning. It's back to the conversation about like true integrity that we've had all summer with this Saturn South Node stuff, and how it's like with this Virgo energy, it's detoxifying the cultural conditioning about what's pure. Because why is it pure to be monogamous in one relationship with one person for your entire life when you have resentment and repression and jealousy and maybe even like, cheating? It's like, but the purity is in abiding by that social construct that's keeping you impure internally. And so it's like I feel like we can no longer digest those impurities, like they're like coming up.
Like, well, you have to honor the truth of it. So there's a known space, but the known space is that it causes you anxiety. It makes you feel sick. You're not happy. So honoring that truth is to walk away from. It's like, okay, it's a shit sandwich. But you keep on eating this shit sandwich, but the universe is saying, but it's not good for you. It's made you sick. So the universe is waiting for you to honor the truth and stepping into that truth.
Well, I think going back to the whole notion of, this, I agree with you completely, Sarah. Like, okay, there's this, you're doing this and this and this that's so impure, but you're pure because you followed the right way. But I also think that back then they were like, well, you rely on that this isn't even about you and the relationship, it's just about God. Like, and God is what keeps you two together, right? Which is that ultimate purity, like a Neptunian mixed with a Virgoan, like, kind of element. So I think that if we look at life situations today, now, of course, if we're talking about relationships in life, okay, most of us, I think, we've already lost our virginity. So, there's like, this all shifted. But I think when we look at situations, it's like, it's like the painting. It's like, that painting's already been done. Like, and you're going to either, I said today, there's like phones. We can look back at memories. We can watch old tapes of things. We can watch old videos. We could go to a museum and relive it. But, the pyramids, they just leave them the way they are. It's not like they're redoing the pyramids right now to like make them look like they were when it should have maybe looked thousands of years ago. We don't know what it really looked like.
That's like us implanting our like idea of what was right or wrong about it. And yeah, there was something. Oh, I was talking about this today. I literally looked at my Instagram archive just the other day, and I went back to like a year and a half ago, and I was like, wow, like I can physically see with my eyes the change in my face and my skin and just like the experiences I've been through. And I was also like, and it's not blaming the experiences I've been through as if like I wish I could go back and make a different choice and prevent myself from going through that because look at the effect it had on me. It's like, no, like that was going to happen anyways. This is just the form it manifested through. And so that's where it's like taking ourselves out of this control or like this, like, you know, what's the word? I don't know what word I'm trying to say, but we're basically we're measuring though if it's right or wrong. For sure. It's control, but it's a perceptual control of like there is no such thing as regret and there is no such thing as worry. Like learning how to just like take the lesson and
surrender
go with it.
to the whole entire process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's us not defining it and learning to watch the gift that's showing up.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to make the gift with not a lot to work with.
Yeah, the words evaluate. That's
like
what I was thinking.
we don't have all the pieces necessary to make the gift as beautiful as it is because there is always, and even painting, right? You get a certain amount of tools and paint and stuff, but it's that magic essence when you surrender to the flow that brings the full magic together. It's like the magician card in tarot, right? It's like there's this above and below and you're in between and you have to know how to connect with both or you're not going to make magic.
Yeah.
And I think if you're just operating from lower frequency vibrations right now, which is very Mars trine Pluto this week, like, oh, I can do it, but there's this Jupiter square Neptune, like, okay, delusion or playing a past pattern and believing it'll all work out. Because I think that Mars Pluto is really tricky. It's about change. And it's about new change, you know? Like, there's something about all this new, because there's a grand trine this week. And the grand trine is dealing with Uranus and Pluto. They want new energy. They don't want old. There's a lot of energy that's like, just cut the old out. Like, old is done. Old is gone. But it's like we're wanting to play that in our personal lives with this North Node in Cancer, this comfort zone thing. So it's like easier to play, you know, an old record that you like because it makes you feel comfortable. It reminds you of when grandma used to sit with you or yada, 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 right? But it's like, at the same time, it's like, how many times are you going to watch that movie or play that record where then you're sitting there crying and remembering it, and then you're not in life anymore. You're not living life. You're not in your full presence of it.
Yeah,
and you're also attached to that more than the now and the future of where life's going. I think that there's a little bit of weirdness with that.
Yeah. I'm like taking all of that in.
Well, you know, cause, you know, if you go to like old... You know, I went to Craig and I actually, and my dad, when I was racing in Lake Elsinore, we went to this cool shop. This guy's got this like old 1950s, 60s record shop with old hot rod parts, and it had old radios and everything from the. And I love it. The nostalgia is great. But I was in there, and I'm like, okay, it's fun for like 20 minutes, and then you know, like ready to go. I'm like thinking of the future and like whatever. But like this guy like was like, I cannot wait to sell this thing. That was like one of the first things he told Craig and I. Like, I'm like done here, you know, because I think he's just like
over it.
I'm just sitting in the past all day.
It's time to cut all that loose.
Yeah,
it's true, and the universe does show up like that to remind you that like you already know, you know, this constant thing. Pull the trigger, like do it. Cut it off. And sometimes the universe disguises that in many
I'm glad
faces.
that you brought disguising, because this week is the last big transit of Jupiter and Neptune in their home sides, and this can be the biggest facade to escapism and patterns and projecting it as not, like almost like, oh my gosh, no, this isn't a pattern actually.
It's a godsend.
It's godsend. It's meant to work out. Or da da da. When you know you're like going into whole, I don't even know, like the fun house that's not the fun house.
100.
And then there's this other aspect though that is showing that this is the ultimate high vibrational truth of moving to the most beautiful, most higher vibrational world, but it's tricky.
Tricky.
How would you two both put it in your own ways of how to deal with this trickiness?
I heard you.
It's almost Halloween.
I feel it's that space of like even me. Like it's been a weird. I just turned 41. You know, I feel like the last few months has been a test of seeing how I maintain my balance through things that would trip me up. Right. So we talk like triggers, you know, and then it is about checking your bad habits of you really saying like, okay, are you ready for this evolution? Are you ready for this enlightenment? Okay, we're going to take one last test. Let's see what happens when you lose your job right now. You know, let's see what happens when, you know, like, you know, I have a son, like he's been changing. How am I going to show up? How do I show up? You know, am I getting still emotionally swept? Am I partying hard right now to escape? Am I looking for a relationship and I should just be really digging down on my businesses? You know, like, and it does, it's a test. And it's like, yeah, the universe wants you to fully accept and surrender to the process of it. And when we are really truly looking for this space of enlightenment, like the universe wants you to full on earn it and see how you are really truly acclimating to worthiness, success, love, unconditional love, gratitude, right? We were just talking about that. Like this anxiousness, it made me want to look for what is negative right now. Right? Like, I feel like shit. Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm kind of broke. Oh, dang, I wish I got that mural. I didn't get it. Or, man, what's going on? But then I was like, wait, I got a free acai bowl. You know, I got 10% off here. I got a massage at Burke Williams with my best friend that I've known since I was 6 years old. I just booked a mural. Like, yeah, like, I have nothing going wrong. But I feel like something is and I would normally read that as negative, and then I would go to the spaces that no longer serve me. So it's a check. Like, bitch, you really ready for this? Are you really seeing from all perspectives?
It's an upper limit. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, but great book, easy read. And the whole concept is this theory of the upper limit. And I think right now is a test of receiving. And it's the biggest moment of receiving like I think I've ever been in. And that's what those things are. They're just signs. They're like symptoms of like, holy shit, it must be really good.
Yeah.
And like training your mind to start to respond to when it's coming up like that. I feel like the trick, what I'm seeing is there's so much energy. Like Mars trine Pluto with like Earth trines, and then you've got Jupiter square Neptune, the final square, while Saturn's stationing direct. It's like, it's so big, but it's like, it's not just thinking about the big in this moment, it's looking bigger, like farther. So Saturn at home in Capricorn going direct, it's like, you need to be able to see so much farther than this moment, and you need to align to something higher than just your gratification of like the biggest gold pot right in front of you. It's like, oh, this is the best, yes. And it's like, did you think about who was giving you that gold and where that came from? And did you think about who, once you take this gold, then who's going to come thinking that they saw you get it, so then they get so it's like, think bigger, think like longer, and then also make sure you're checked into your motivation. Like Mars Pluto, that's hunger, it's passion. Is it aligned to something greater than just yourself? Is it aligned to like a spiritual, you know, are you like, is there, who's the authority in that? I feel like, because, and I can say like with Pluto squaring my Mars this whole year, it's like I understand like that ego, just like we get ahead of ourselves and we're hungry and we think we know and we can just go like straight into something. And it's taking the moment to pause and remember that the soul lives, like luxuriates in simplicity, right? Like that's when you're really living to the max, when you're like, I don't need much. Like I'm good. Like I'm clear. And like what really satiates me. So it's like a deeper satiation.
Yeah, I love both those looks at it, because I'm feeling like it's like being okay with being in the void a little bit, right? Like where opposed to it's like something needs to be happening right now, or something
So
needs to be
voidy.
showing up right now, or it needs to be had. It needs to be had, but it's like, what if I just release and just kind of go into who I am and what I already have now, to go after it and try and, this is not a go after something energy. This is, if it's aligned, it will show up. And you're
Checking yourself with that whole like, why am I actually doing this? Why do I actually want it? And like, am I leaving space to be guided so that it's not just like,
What am I working against?
yeah.
But we do. I feel like, even in my own personal journey, it's that hustle, the grind. I'm a go-getter. Get in where I fit in. Create it. Build it. I was, being a mom. Like I was like fight or flight, but I did get to a point where it's like being in the water, right? And something's kind of just floating towards you, but you go and get it, but you push it with the ripple. And that I feel like has been my journey truly in the last couple of years of what are my bad habits actually working against everything that I want? Me being so hard and I'm Kim Tabay and I could do it myself. I'm not going to ask, I was working against all the things that are here to actually fulfill everything that I want if I don't push up against it, because I wasn't acclimated to what real like embracing love feels like, and that's why we tense up. We even get anxiety in the spaces in which we're actually acclimating to everything that we want, just because it's new and it's raw. Even true love feels probably super new. Like in this space of me being as old as I am, this is a brand new space. My awareness of myself is something I feel like my body has to get used to. My spirit has to even get used to that. Like my eyes have to adjust to really see the blessings, But that's
There's
why
an adjustment process though.
there is,
and that's
100%.
what we have to acknowledge.
And I think that's 100. And that's the gift.
right.
The gift is just accepting that this is a part of the process, and I may be in my human form, maybe, and because of my conditioning or because of bad habits, I may be fucking this up myself. So if I just be present and do the inventory, maybe I'll really be able to use this power to fulfill everything that I want. And so then that becomes an example for my son, and an example for my family, and just living in the truth. And that's how we build, I think, communities, is through understanding that it's like we're all there. And this is and speaking about the language of the process. And I think that's what, with art, to me, is so important, because in the middle of it, I'll say, I know it's going to look like a hot mess, and it's going to look like a hot mess, but just follow through. And love is an action word. And even if you're stuck in your head about, it's an action. It's the universe saying, oh, she's not only thinking about it, she's also putting physical energy behind it. Not only putting a physical, she's making a mark with the intention of wanting to elevate or to make something or create something.
Showing up.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of, there's a side of this to where it's like, let's say you want to get something you want, but you can't get it, so you're like, well, I'll do the good thing right now. There's like a manipulation tactic people do on people, right? An agenda. Like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing the work. It's like, like let's say you're with somebody who, I don't know, maybe they're just such an alcoholic and they threw shit at you all the time, but they're like, no, I fixed it now. Just went to rehab, You should take me back. I've got it fixed. But really, they're just doing that to get the person back. But once they get it back, it's like, all right, back to the bottle.
They don't even have the tools
you know what I mean?
Follow through.
Yeah, and I think when you're driving your need right now to raise and get out of patterns, it cannot be hunger driven. It can't be driven off of this need. Now, if it's
lust.
driven, like you said, more of like this, I'm showing up to do my integrity.
Purpose.
To me, it felt like more of integrity to show up for your kid the right way and to show up for all.
Yeah.
Right? Like these are the things, and they're very personal too. Like it's much more just about like creating the best personal space in yourself to see what the beauty of this next dimensional shift is, because it's a dimensional shift. It's a shift in a new vibration, a new frequency of the reality that's going to be really a place we've never all gone before. So we really don't know what's on the other side of this because it's very veiled out, but we intuitively know it's great. We intuitively know we just need to focus on in ourselves right now. Yeah, it's an adjustment. It's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
Because it's lonely. There's something about Neptune that's very lonely.
100.
Because
It's very
it's
voidy.
you and spirit alone.
100. That's why a lot of
And-
my paintings, it shows, because it's for me to create something visual that says, yeah, girl, you are alone. This is just you. This is your narrative. You know, that's important for me to like have that language, you know, get out of my head, get out of this, because up here is where other people's thoughts and stuff exist. But if I own it and create the story and create the narrative, it at least gives me a reference point of, no, fuck that. I ain't drowning. I'm becoming a mythical creature that could breathe underwater. I'm a mermaid. You know what I mean? Like I'm evolving. I'm accepting that life is painful and uncomfortable, but I'm going to see the imperfections of it and the beauty of it. And I'm going to see that in other people so that I could be more of an empathetic, compassionate person, so that I could teach my son to accept himself and all of his imperfections, and look at his mom who accepts that like I chose a very unconventional, unperfect life, but I could still create beauty in that. I could still see myself as beautiful and all those things, because it's like I couldn't live a life I hated and tell my son like, I want you to be happy, just be happy. And like I didn't ever give him the tools to truly live that true authentic life. You know, that's why it's like when I had him, when everyone thought I was gonna like then get that 8 to 5, get the benefits, but I was more like, there is no way in hell I could be a fraud to this child who I inherently got all this pure light from. You know, it was hard having my son. You know, it was very unexpected. I was struggling as an artist. I still didn't know where I was going to do, but it felt like he was a force that came into my life that I couldn't deny. But it was this pure light in which I had to thank the universe. And by honoring that, everything else that I spent energy and time doing had to reflect that same type of light and integrity. That was my way of honoring it. You know, like, thank you for this gift. So now how I spend my life, my job, my passion, my relationships have to have the same type of frequency and love and light.
I'm
And in
like,
that-
why don't we do that for ourselves just in devotion of being alive? Like, why aren't we
100.
just like why do we
Honoring
need a relationship or, you know, a child? Like, I mean, I think it's beautiful that you even had that, by the way.
That was
I wanna
my wake up.
honor
That was just my wake
and that's kind of what, like, for me, like losing my father. So like death, it's like your
100.
new life or like death. But there's like, like, I think that's where we're at right now, is like living in devotion to like being alive. Like, how does that actually look? Like, you actually,
What does
you
it look
chose to
like?
be here. What does that look like if you actually chose to be here? And I was thinking the moments when you're alone, like yesterday I was by myself hanging out and I was like, Spirit was like, I missed you. Like, I like want to rekindle my relationship with you. And when Spirit misses you, that's when it starts taking things away from you, because it's like, hello, like, wake up. Like, what about me? What about us? And so you're not alone. And like, life and Spirit, like, today I had the weirdest fucking day, but I was like, I have two options. I can think, you know, is this a friendly universe or is it not? And I'm like, if I think it's not, this is a terrible day.
Yeah.
But if I think it is, I'm like, Spirit's got a great sense of humor, and it's like giving me the sense of it's actually chilling me the fuck out by testing me.
But even
you
your
know?
body responds to it. If you said, I'm having a terrible day, right? We start shrinking,
Oh yeah,
right?
of course.
We interpret it. Like, I'm having a shitty day.
Well, I
Or
think
it's like, no.
Sarah brings up a good point. Like, it's like, does it always have to be divine intervention opposed to just divine? That's the way I look
Yeah,
at
but
it.
everyone's so lost right now.
But there's, and I think it's part of the
sad.
process, though. I mean, even if you just look at the day, right? Like from day to night, like there's always a different vibe, and always like we go through things that kind of change the way we are in life a lot. But I think that it's like finding that constant. And I think what's interesting is, I don't know why I've been thinking about this since our whole conversation, but like when NASA sends out a rocket to hit a planet, it's not like, is the rocket ready? Let's just go. It's like, no. We have to calculate where are the planets at, so that when they sent those Voyager missions in the 70s to go where beyond Pluto is, and now they're out of our solar system, they waited for the exact years, for the exact moment, because they knew all the this was like a once-in-a-lifetime moment that was going to be not for hundreds of years, to where the planets were perfectly aligned to where they could shoot them off and use the gravitational pulls to be able to get them all the way out there, right? So it's like looking at the long term and not just like the hunger of letting the rockets off. So the beginning of NASA, there's some weird stuff when they were starting the Apollo missions to go to the moon, and there was some fuck ups in the simulators and shit like that. But, you know, they had a pretty good track record. Apollo 13 even went crazy, but they still made it back. But then you get Challenger mission when they brought the teacher on board, and that thing blew up. And I always wonder, and I always think at that moment, like, were they rushing it?
Did they rush it?
And did they put it all about having a teacher on it? And did they forget about the whole identity of
there's cracks.
there's integrity that needs to be done first?
Yeah.
This is a pretty serious thing. We're putting a rocket up into space. But we're more focused right now on that a teacher is on there. And God bless her soul, and I don't want to take away from that. But there is this, we need to treat Jupiter and Neptune and Saturn. These are the three big dogs. They're in their home signs, and they're all doing big things. So it's like, this is a big thing. It's like not to be, I don't want to say it's like handle with care. It's like handle with awareness and consciousness. And, you know, there's a big rocket, and you don't want to shoot it off, because if you just miss your trajectory, which Jupiter square Neptune is the archer that might aim in the most wrongest position of all time. And when you shoot that arrow off, that's where Capricorn kind of takes the arrow, you know? And it's like, do you really want to end up like in North Platte, Nebraska on an RV on the lake, as I was talking about earlier? Is that really where Craig and I kind of want to end up there?
Later though. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah.
So,
okay, wait, this is so great. I've been saying this whole week, I'm like, we are about to be launched. Like, we are about to be launched. I can like feel like the void of voids, the whole void. And all you have to do right now is like make your aim. Like, you will be launched. You are not the launcher. You are not the rocket fuel. You're the archer. And that's where like aim, like with just like unwavering focus of like, I don't know how the fuck is going to happen or where, like, I don't know, you know, but I know for sure, like, it's in that direction. I know what I want energetically, like big picture wise.
that's what a belief is all it is an aim.
And energy.
It's not a release, though.
But we're about to be launched. And so it's like, don't get caught up in like the go start. Like, don't like, it's not about starting right now. It's about being really clear and receptive, being open and receptive. Because like we are.
And letting things come in. I think a lot of people are pushing things away that are pure and good, but only wanting to go after what's tainted already and what's already been done. And just like, you know, so it's like, great things are right in front of people right now. I think the gift talk that we're talking about, but it's like, nope, I really want it to look like this. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go to where I've already tried and it hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
And it's ugly at the end of the day. And I'm trying to lipstick this thing up and go to Sephora and just put as much as I can on it. Did it work out? I don't know, you know, and I think that's the hard part about this, is that there's so many beautiful gifts of Jupiter, Neptune. This is like Holy Grail stuff. And the Holy Grail, the only way that, in the story of the Holy Grail, that Sir Galahad, which was the son of Lancelot, got to the Holy Grail, because Lancelot failed because of his not pure self to a lot of things that he did, whether it was cheating to backstabbing or whatever, and to killing a lot of people. Galahad was pure enough to have the cup of Christ, like the Holy Grail, they call it. And this is like a Holy Grail moment. of purity, that there is a rite of passage through here. And it has integrity, and it has, you're forgiven with compassion for your patterns and what you've done, but it's also not about doubling down on them right now. It's about understanding them and taking the wisdom from them and using that as the rocket fuel of, I'm going to aim and it's going to go into the direction that's going to go in a place I've never been before, because I learned a lot from these lessons and I don't want to go there in these patterns anymore. Getting out of patterns is actually a place we've never been before. That's like whoo.
What would that be like? To like just actually live.
That's part of it, I think, with the new. These are we're going to look back, I think, and go like, these moments are big benchmarks or stairways to the new world that we always talk about, or the new age, or however you want to call it. These are these big tests of those places. And I'll be real, this is a very chaotic week, with the moon coming into Gemini to add to the mutable, crossed with the moon square the sun as well. Like, it's all being with Jupiter, Neptune square. It's adding, and Mars is in there too still, even though it's got some more positive aspects. It does get squared a lot, and it does add some momentum to this thing. And with Saturn turning on and like, oh my gosh, I got the South Node right in my face. And it's like, I do not want to go back into any illusional stuff or any past stuff. Saturn's like, I am going to cut. Saturn is going to be like, no, I'm cutting that karma off. Or it's like, well, I'm going to go back into the VCR, and I was saying today, I'm going to make the choice to just keep reliving the old stories. But what happens in old stories? How long do you think it took for us to get right back to here? Like, if you were to use a human mind, billions of travels and however, it's a long line. And did you have to wait in a line, and then you get in the line for billions of years, and then you're a particle? And then it's like, oh my gosh, and then you live the whole particle of a billion years, and then, okay, now you're this, and then now you're that. And then finally we've evolved to this beautiful point, and now I'm going to just waste all of that time that it took for me to fucking get here finally, to just go back in that line.
Or not.
It's like everybody has a permit right now, like when you get your driver's license, before you get your permit, right? And it's like, the driver's test is now, and it's so much easier with that person next to me with the permit, and I can get away with kind of, not having to have the responsibility of like having to
half-ass it.
have the ability to have the drive, and to more importantly, it's like the fear of what will it be like to be alone and driving the car, to be able to actually go to places I really want to go, but I'm too afraid because I'm so used to this energy of pattern next to me that's keeping me safe.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like a dog that's really not a dog. It's like a really creepy, they always use the old analogies of the devil on your one shoulder and the angel on the other. And I feel like we're kind of walking two little dogs of both. And it's like, which one are you going to let pull you which direction at this moment?
You have to predetermine, I feel like.
These are moments of free will.
Yes.
Right here is that major choice point, are in hard aspects like this.
But like predetermine it.
But
Like predetermine your which one you'll go with. And then it's not predetermining the situation and the outcome. Like I was actually just thinking about that today about the mindset of predeterminations. Like we do that to set ourselves up to protect ourselves. Like I'm gonna make sure I pack all these things just in case this happens, instead of just being like, no, I'm gonna show up ready for whatever happens because I've packed like this mindset. Like I've packed this predetermination of like, I know what the higher choice is in every moment. There's an anchor guiding me.
Yeah. I feel like with my choices, I've really surrendered to trust, right? I know that I've dedicated my life to trying to live my life with full integrity, intention, purpose, and to obtain enlightenment and love and consciousness. So when things come in and out of my life, and even though I had a certain like fantasy or expectation of it, I just say, okay, well, there's an editing program happening right now. And I just have to trust that my light and my energy is deterring something from coming in, or it's allowing for something to come in. So then it is. If I keep on going like this to someone, or just in the act of reaching, I'm actually like moving off my balance and I'm reaching for something that's not actually meeting me halfway, so I'm not meeting my balance. So what it is, it's like, okay, does this add value to my life, or is it a distraction in my life? So that's how I see like my map and my journey is, these are my crossroads, is that knowledge of like, okay, this guy does not add value to my life. I know that. I'm constantly questioning and I'm feeling like this and I'm putting an extra effort, which is keeping me off balance of everything else that I have in my life, which is unfair, and it doesn't show gratitude for these things I already know bring me to these vibrational states. But now I'm chasing something that is making me reach.
You're playing Jenga.
Just accept it and trust that
you're like pulling it.
The universe is like, saying it ain't it.
At any moment, that thing will go,
yeah.
Well, and like, why not want something that wants us back?
100.
Like, why not? Like, I think that's part of it too right now is like, if something's like, I love that analogy. I love that visual of like, if I'm reaching out, but it's not reaching back, I'm leaving that center point.
Leaving my center.
I love that. Like,
especially
that's so.
because the equinox is on Monday.
Yeah. And
it's Libra and it's balance.
About balance.
And this one's intense.
Yeah. And that's where truth shows itself. It is evident. Look at
this astrologer artist right here.
It's me surrendering to and trying to understand life. You know what I mean? Like, and it is because I've been into that place of that lonely.
You're tapped in though.
Thank you. It's been hard work, and it's been hard work to even be able to have a language to it, you know? And that's what's exciting about my journey as an artist is like, oh yeah, I want to paint. But I finally come to a place becoming an artist. It's not about my paintings are tools, but it's about giving people the gift of creation. Like, we all have access to all of this. Hit like joy that is right in front of our faces.
And it gives back. Actually, we have a video. Why don't you describe to us? We're about to show a video that you did real quick.
Oh yeah. So this like, it's been a crazy few months. You know, I lost a job that I loved, and I worked with people that we loved, and it was a vibrational thing, and people came, and it was that old school of eye contact, and we hugged each other, our guests, and it was just part of this how we grew up, you know. And I lost this job. What was crazy about that is like a week before that, my cousin called me, and she said she had this recurring dream about her parents were like grandparents to me. So I'm first generation Filipino, and I didn't grow up with my grandparents around. I felt very disconnected from, like, you know, my roots, from where my parents came from. My cousin had a dream that her father and my aunt led her into a room with wooden panels, which, you know, the set that Craig built for There's Art to Life is all wooden panels. And she had a dream that my aunt and my uncle led her into a room that was really bright with light. And I was standing there in front of a big set full of colors. And this is like, and then 2 days later, I realized that I was going to lose my job within 10 days. And I lost that job, and 2 days later, Craig called me to meet with Abby and introduced me to do There's an Art to Life, you know, and that was a space in which, like, I really had to be like, no, you don't need the oh shit handle, and don't clinch jump, and don't close your eyes, just take this ride, you know. And even, you know, leading up to this video, and my aunt so long story short, my aunt got sick a couple months ago, and my father, unfortunately, is sick and he can't travel. And his side of the family is a family that we haven't really been close to. But I knew it was important for my father to go and honor his oldest sister and go to a house that he built with his family. And it's a big deal for my father to come here to this country and be able to send his family through school, who really came from like nothing. And so this pilgrimage is something I feel like I felt it was coming for a long time, for the last 2 years. Just me as an artist, I felt like I needed to go back and connect in some way, some shape or form. And my aunt got sick, and 5 days later, I was on a plane to the Philippines taking a trip that I hadn't been there for over 15, almost 20 years. And I was young when I went, and I think I was very scared and culture shocked and all that stuff. So this time around, I felt like I was really able to embrace the whole journey and just go with the flow. And from start to finish, it was an amazing trip. I ended up on the same flight with my god siblings I haven't seen for over 15 years, and they were on every single flight. And we saw this house that my father grew up in. I saw my aunt, and she was very happy to see me. And I really wanted to just do something special for my family. And so I went to the local store, and I found these beautiful butterflies that were local. I always love to like take my son and my nephew things that are from these places that I travel. And I brought this like a really small set of paints, and I was able to create this mural and dedicate it to my family. So a butterfly is just something that it just symbolizes nature. It just symbolizes.
And then you did a show on High Vibe about it, too.
And then I taught it. And the amazing people sending
People have been doing it, and I've been reposting it on my Instagram and your Instagram.
It's dope.
And it's amazing. And
you know what I mean? Like, for the fact that like I could paint with other people simultaneously from another part of the world, and they're able to empower themselves through creating something that was nothing and then becomes something. And Eileen, big shout out to Eileen. She's been writing me and very grateful and gracious for what she's been taking away.
And her painting was like exquisite.
I was like amazing. Yeah. And then she said that her daughter is at university and she wants to take it back to hang in her dorm. And that's the gift of creating things that are significant, you know. And I think we, in this consumer day and age, we just consume things. And I really want, through art, to integrate significance. If you know what I mean, if you're going to spend your money on it, you're going to spend your time doing it, make it for the people you love, make it feel good, because that feeling is what I think is being reiterated. Like, it don't matter how much money you have, it don't matter who you marry, it don't matter how many kids you got or what house. Like, how does it make you feel? You know, because that's everything. Let's be real now. You know, all of us who have really been practicing this space of vibration, we know when we meet someone who is not stepping into their greatness and who aren't living through their spirit, you know, I feel it every day around people. And I feel like with what I do, I just want to be like, I see you and I know that you're struggling, but look at all these things that I have found in my life that have brought me joy in my spaces of loneliness, in my spaces of like anxiousness and wondering, where do I belong? Look, I created these things, and so can you. Like, I just want to empower people.
So let's roll the tape. Let's see, because it's pretty awesome what you did here.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just took like a really small thing. I was really surprised of how big this could be. But what's really great about, I think a friend of Craig's also did the butterfly. Oh no, she did the moon. But I've had a lot of people do this, and what's really great is that you could put your own twist on it. So that's up on High Vibe under the free content as well. But
I love the time lapse.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get actually, like, a lot of my artist friends are like, oh my God, you always do time lapse. But the time lapse is, to me, is just it's witnessing how something was nothing before, and just because I put my time and my energy towards it, it became something, right? And not only something, now it's like the butterfly will always remind me about my trip. It will always remind me of that time in my life. It will remind me about my family. It will remind me about wanting to give back to my family and say thank you. You know what I'm saying? It's like creating time machines for myself. Like how like you said, music makes us feel certain things. They're portholes of tangible feelings. So when you're feeling like shit, go look at that painting that made you feel good. You
Yeah,
know,
and I think time lapse, what it does is it reminds you that it was a lot of work and it was a lot of time, but it's like giving it to you in a space that it's like, oh wow, look at, like it's condensed,
Yes.
but it also is a realization of like,
and I
wow,
wanna
look at how
honor-
fast you're moving back, and it makes people take in a very small amount of time a realization of how much time there really was. And I think that this is a very good spiritual lesson in this moment of like, no, this is not just like a time lapse moment where it's going to happen all that fast for you instantaneously without realizing how long it takes to build something of beauty. Saturn is a builder that wants to build quality. And there's a lot about quality right now in life. And so when you brought up the space of, I liked how you said us in this frequency or this vibrational energy. I think it's like, it's like, why not be in an energy that's cooperative? Like spirit is cooperative with us. Like this is a moment of just finding what is totally synergized and what's not. It's like when you're painting, it's synergy. When you're doing music, it's synergy and it's in rhythm. And there's something about the end of Virgo here about finding the rhythm. If the rhythm is meeting the beauty and the openness of this beautiful path, and you're seeing yourself going into new spaces and leaving old energy that feels good, and you know in yourself that the frequency is rising and it's not delusional, because it's like when you take a drug or you do a lot of alcohol, like there's a false sense of that you're rising, but it falls really fast. But if you can see that it's got on a rhythm,
so
a
it
consistent
makes you
basis.
aware that you're in the driver's seat. So if you're distracted and you're going like this, then you're not recognizing what the true rhythm is. Then you're getting in the way of seeing what the true rhythm is,
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're on the freeway, I mean, everybody
and you're like-
is victim to, I'm on my phone checking that. Look at this, because we are very good at subconsciously driving, right? We actually really do not consciously drive a lot. We actually subconsciously drive more than consciously, because we can just
Autopilot.
it's like walking. We don't think about walking. We actually don't think about driving anymore. But what's interesting is racing.
All sets. You better.
There is there's some subconscious moves, but it's like I gotta look ahead at that turn, and if I'm in second or third, and I gotta do that, and there's the anticipation, there's the the start, and then there's
Muscle memory.
There's this whole thing about being in it the whole time, and you're focusing on your breath. I gotta breathe right now, because if you constrict your breathing, now you're gonna get tired. So it's like remembering to breathe, remembering to do that. You're aware, but when we're driving, it's like, especially if I drive like my Navigator, which has massaging seats, like,
Autopilot.
And it literally is autopilot. Like, it'll drive itself, and it will stop itself, and it has auto hold. So once I stop at the light, I can take my foot off the pedal and just push the gas button.
Yeah.
Like I really don't have to drive. But so there's this moment of like, if it's it's a mixture of both. It's like if it feels like it's just so natural, and you're not having to go against any kind of cooperation, and it's really easy, and it feels divine. Because I think that there's a moment where you have to feel divine. It's just about that trickiness of the cloudiness of divine that's really clear but unclear if you're driving yourself from a place of non-rhythm and a place that doesn't have a routine that makes sense, or a constant.
Yeah, because it's not like a boop boop.
If it's like this,
between,
it's definitely not there. If it's speaking of frequencies, when you see your heartbeat, like, so they notice if you have AFib, if you have like your heart's missing, it's not on the right. They call it sinus rhythm when you're good. Like if you notice the heart, it's got a beat, and it stays constant in a good rhythm. I think that right now is a great way to know that you're in the right space. But if it's like, nope, stop, and then an emotion, and this creates dramaticism, like drama, really high, and almost a manic energy, because Jupiter can be so over-believing in Sagittarius, like, no, like, and Neptune can also be like, yeah, take another, like, okay, it's like, ooh. like there is something called hangovers and come downs in life. Yeah. And then that can drop people, I think, with Mercury square Saturn this week into depression, really hardcore. Because these are lower energies that we're almost trying to trick ourselves and think they're higher.
Yeah, I see I see the Mercury square Saturn also as a moment of like getting there, because it's like this friction, right? This internal friction. And it's kind of like Saturn goes direct and we start moving forward on the path. And then there's like this Libran partnership communication that comes in, and it's going to like test you a little bit. Like, are you going to say what you need to, like the truth, like your true boundary, your true authentic yes? Or are you going to like people please or get into this like needing to be heard? Are you going to get in an argument that's just going to drain your energy? Or are you just going to go into the thought loop that's just going to like, it's not helpful to start to worry about that or think about that. It's like stop. So I think the medicine is like being okay with the internal discomfort of like not saying that thing or like not complaining about that, not defining it, not needing to like overshare. It's like sometimes silence speaks more. Totally. And there's like a withholding almost, I think, so that you don't go in this crazy thing and like working through whatever comes up with that, like what blocks you from being able to just own your truth rather than needing to be heard or needing to like have someone agree with you in this way.
I think the blocks are actually a blessing.
Exactly. And that's yes, I think that's so true,
like
especially
if it's blocked,
now.
like that's protecting you.
It's protecting you.
It's this huge gate being like, you don't really want to know what's behind the gate here. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I get it.
Right. Like not pushing that.
Like if Jurassic Park was real, like don't go past this gate.
Okay.
But you remember in the first one when what's his name from Seinfeld's in it, and the guy who steals all the stuff. Anyway. And he steals it and he starts going and he shuts off the whole power system and he's like, I got to get to this boat and I'm going to steal it to make my money. You know what I mean? This is a very Jupiter square Neptune thing, like, and with the Mars square Pluto. Like, I got to do this and I'm going to destroy and I'm going to turn off the power and I'm going to go there and I'm going to get there. And I'm going to take a gas-powered truck that's not on the thing and get there. Well, he gets shit in his fucking eyes. Remember?
No. He gets eaten up.
He even gets blinded, which is kind of an interesting element. He suffers. He suffers hard. And then everybody else suffers too. And this can also be like where we don't want to create suffering on others right now either. No. I think that this is something that is a test as well of integrity. Is like, are you going to go create suffering on someone else by showing up and saying you're going to show up with integrity, but you Jupiter Neptuned it and kind of went, oh wait, actually, no, I'm not ready for that yet. And then pull out and then create, no, you're not, you didn't show up with integrity. And this is where everybody I think now has to, with this non-definition thing, I think it's just important. Like it's a little bit of a Plato moment, like, and it's not hard.
It's scary. But that's what we're talking about. But I think that's why it's hard for people to accept change and step into change. I find a lot of people get stuck with not wanting to change unless they know what the next step is. But that's not honoring the truth, right? Like, universe is waiting for you just to put down the shit sandwich and saying, it ain't for me. So then something then can come in. Everyone's always just being like, well, I'm not going to let go of this until you tell me what the next is. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You have to make that first move. You
have to clear the space and fully own that. And be grateful for the knowledge that I've eaten it, I digested it, my system doesn't want it. Check that off my list and fully take it out. You can't half step it.
Yeah.
And not getting stuck in both of it. You got to fully own it. Like, I am full on done with this. Like you said, cut the ties. You can't like say I'm done with the relationship and still be like living with the person, or like still attached emotionally in certain ways. You full on have to step out of it in order for the universe being like, She gets it. She says, thank you. I full on
Because then you
appreciate
get
it. And out.
it's like there's rapid fire gift that comes after.
100.
But I also noticed like on this track that like if you do, let's say you're like, I want this change, and then you step back at all and you feel that contrast and you're like, okay, and maybe you need to like step back to just clarify even more. And like then do you withhold yourself from receiving because you're going to judge yourself for stepping back? Like I also feel this like Punisher energy with this like really intense Saturn, where it's like the guilt of like, and the shame of, oh my God, I went back, and this pressure to just like get it right. And it's like, it's cool.
It's all
like
part of
everything serves, like let the contrast, just let it serve though. And like to your point, it's like continue to let every lesson be learned in a stroke forward.
That's why I like to tell people, like, I know it feels crazy and I know it feels like shit and it looks crazy. I'm like, but just remember, you asked for all of it.
Yeah.
Like you asked.
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
Yeah, but
we are here.
I feel like to what Sarah's saying, I think she's right. And then I think divine intervention hits the end of this week. Like where it's like, rite of passage moment. Because something energetically is going to try to disrupt it with Jupiter, with all of it. It's like it's going to be a chaotic storm. So it's going to kind of be like if energy that you've been really trying to let go of or anything, it's going to find a way to fly out. Like out of nowhere, Dorothy's house just got picked up and just got sent into, I was going to say Neverland, but I was talking about Peter Pan last week. But got sent into where? So I guess just not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
It just kind of
oh my God.
takes you out, just it really does pull things out of the reality too. Like out of nowhere, just like what?
Yeah.
But does it reflect back something that you've been withholding?
I don't think so. I think that this is where we can actually look at there's very rare moments in life where if you believe in angels or you believe in whether you want to call that some sort of higher presence that does do its greater work. I really believe that if you're showing up in that integrity and you're there doing the work, that part of the way to receive the great gift is there's going to be a team of rappers that wrap the gift for you, but they have to clear the energy to wrap the gift too.
I was thinking Wu-Tang Clan.
They naturally will.
But you would think rappers like that.
Right, but they will like take out the energy that is within causing you not to receive the gift if you're just in a space of allowing it to go, and will naturally trigger a lot of energy that is unconscious right now very quick. And find a way for them to shame and blah, 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 and create a belief system of negative and doubt and I've been screwed over. There's a lot of victim mentality that goes around with Neptune when like, especially if it's looking into the past, right? With Jupiter, like past belief about it. And, Sarah talks a lot about, limited beliefs and no limit to beliefs, but this can be like really limited beliefs unconsciously that can come up and then really create just like this double down on that, and I'm going into that limited belief and bam, and then just like boom. It's like, whoa, okay, out.
But that's where you like today, like I was literally in my day moment to moment, it was just like everything that's happening, I have a choice of how I am going to perceive this, and it's a practice, and that's where like Saturn right now is like it's gonna pay off, man. Like put in the practice, practice surrender, practice trust, practice like believing that this is a friendly universe. And how do you do that? When something comes that you're not expecting, the moment you're like upset about it, you're like,
how do I know?
How do I know that this is bad? How do I know that this thing that happened to me that stopped me and made me late for this appointment, how do I know that didn't prevent me from getting a car accident? Like how do I know? And which one do I want to put my energy into believing? And a belief is just a practice thought, and right now it's like let's practice thoughts we want.
I'm glad you brought up time, because with Saturn stopped coming direct on the south node, anybody thinking, and especially with Chiron with Venus in opposition, everybody wants to be at a place at a certain time to connect with something at a certain moment. And when this is like ah, like the God, like Saturn's actually laughing, like
Yeah.
like nobody is getting anywhere on time the way that they want to. Everybody's like
Not on their time.
Yeah,
no.
not on their time. Right now, this is nobody's time is going to happen, and I think that's the hardest part because that's what's creating the frustration of Saturn.
It's the best setup.
It's the best setup, and so it's like, oh my God, like I want to be here, and everybody's looking at their watch, like I need to get here at this time, and and I have this because I want to connect. And actually, when you get there, it's the perfect timing, opposed to if you were to push yourself so hard and then push yourself through traffic and then and then get there, and then the energy of what you're expecting is like let's say if you were pushing to get there to see somebody, and then you'd get there and they'd be like, oh, actually, I'm not really feeling that well, and I'm gonna go to bed. Like I'll see you in the morning. Like, oh.
Yes, that's so dope.
But you
on
had
point.
this Jupiter Neptune, like, oh, it's gonna be great. We're gonna have fun, and we're gonna do this.
Because you're so caught up. You're so caught up.
Yeah, you're so caught up in that.
You're not present.
And Saturn's laughing his ass off.
I literally thought today, I was like, and Saturn is the taskmaster and the ruler of time, and the ruler of like this incarnation, right? And it's like, it rules age, and you see people, like old people, right? Like I remember my mama was my grandmother was the most hilarious old woman ever. Like she gave no shits, right? She like earned this seat of like no bullshit and humor and lightheartedness because like she had been through so much of life that she realized so much shit should not be taken seriously.
Yeah.
You know, and she knew what should be taken seriously. And I feel like that's like, are we gonna be these like grumpy old people or these grumpy people that are like, life is so hard, or like, are you just gonna like laugh harder and harder at the ridiculousness of life and how it's like we just are not in control and things are not perfect and it's funny, like it's fine, and we don't need to predetermine if what's happening is a problem. Maybe it's perfect. Maybe we're not meant to go to that thing where that person's going to be tired anyways. Maybe we'll save them the time by being like, you know, it's really not, I'm having a lot of blocks come up. I don't know if I'm meant to go. And they're like, thank you for saying that because I'm actually tired and I didn't want to say anything. And like everybody's freed because you just honored what's actually true, and like you're in your body, like you can feel like
your
if something's on the
intuition.
line, like honor it because it's probably true for the other person. Like we're so connected in that way.
Yeah.
I think that's though a hard part for a lot of people that are not awoke to this moment like this, because that's where everything's at. I like how you said like, yeah, actually I wasn't feeling that too, or or when something's showing up the way that you don't want to, it's almost like there's a resistance to be like, oh, I don't want to accept it. But when you actually accept it and then give it love, like, oh, okay, I accept this for what it is and wish it the best and wish this energy the best that it can be. You can also have an expectation of like, okay, no, now I know the game and it'll just show up. Something will show up beautiful at this moment. It's going to show up when you're not.
Right.
Like, and I think when you
you're
come
not
into
in the
that
way.
space, it was like 20 minutes ago, Kim was talking about, of just really, you know, divine instead of just divine timing, like it's just being in divine, just holding that space of divine.
Yeah. Well, it gives me peace.
But that's when it will
like
show up,
peace.
and when you have finally got to that full place where you're fully like almost like lost in you, like the moment of bliss of spirit, is when out of nowhere, you know, you might get that call from something, or you might get that whatever, and you're just like, of course. And I think that's what's happening right now. Is I think there is a lot of shaming on looking on external forces, like you should be doing this and you should be on this time and you should be doing that, and it's like nobody's in each other's shoes. Everybody, you know, everybody's trying to overanalyze where everybody's at, and they don't really know. Nobody knows. Everybody's going through their own stuff. And I think that this is a moment to honor everybody and wherever they're at, and to trust in their feelings with it, opposed to trust in, well, actually, I think that you're just saying that to get out of this, and because then that's just showing not a lot of compassion anymore. You know? Because if you can accept somebody fully for what they're going through, and you don't know what they're all going through.
Yeah. And the energy that comes with that acceptance and compassion is
then usually if it's a person
sitting in that seat instead of this seat of like,
it usually
what you
goes
doing?
the way you want to when you accept it the way that it is, instead of being frustrated with the way it's not showing up, because you're creating that tension, and that's creating more tension on the other person or the other situation or the project or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
And then
let it
guess
go.
what? It's like, just like, okay, that's what it is, and I'm gonna move on.
Yeah.
That's Uranus.
That's
and
why I
Taurus,
love that.
Let go.
I
Which we're
love
still
that
in that
visual
cycle.
language. It's the lesson of just allow it to be what it is.
Yeah, because I'm sure when you're doing a painting, you might be all up here in this one corner, and it's like, and then you get frustrated. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna just go down over here now. Oh, this is flowing nice.
Yeah.
And that's gonna connect to there somehow.
Yeah. It'll get there because I intended it to.
But if there's resistance in the area you're on, this is what I'm like reading from what you're saying, is like, don't stay on it and just fixate on it and compulsively pick at it until it gets right. It's like,
step back.
that would be a good, just in that moment, that's charged. Like, that's pretty charged. So that's not the moment to fix it. Fix it once you get neutral. Go to something completely different to just distract you. Like, I feel like distraction in a good way right now is like, distract yourself from where you're having resistance to receiving. Like, give yourself, like, what's your self-care routine and what's your
100. I feel like in the space of resistance, I have to push myself the most. Like, it's like athletes, right? Like right now, like our Super Bowl's coming up. Like we better be training. So even like if I'm feeling under the weather, I still better be doing my 100 push-up routine, right? And I think like in that space of feeling like weak, if we double down on the things that we know that we get these positive benefits, positive endorphins, I'm building up my muscles, I'm burning
Mental
off
muscles,
negative energy. Like, it's like when I get down to like the stairs in Laguna, the 100,000 steps, right? Those things are a bitch. But like when I'm climbing those stairs, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this no more. But I'm like, bitch, you ain't gonna live on the second step, like 3 flights down. Like you better keep it moving. And it's in those spaces of where I'm pushing myself most mentally and physically that I actually picture the feelings of resistance that keep me from succeeding and getting to my goals. So I'm like in this space when I'm feeling the weakest and I have to push myself the most is where I truly like visualize all of my blocks. And with every step, it's like doubling down. Like instead of doing 10 reps, I'm going to do 20.
But I was thinking about today, I was like, when I feel like the weakest, like when it's like the pressure on me is on the most, like with this Saturn station, it's like actually that feeling is an illusion because that feeling is that new neural pathway, like actually building some like deep, real rooted strength. And when you're in the part of building strength, like when you're lifting the muscle, you can interpret that as like, that's weakness because I'm not strong. Or you can interpret it as like, this is the moment I'm building strength. That's actually what I'm feeling.
Getting stronger.
So
I do. Yeah.
But it is, and I think that's why, like, you know, for my spirit, like my self-care, when I'm going through the most like mental, emotional, spiritual, like transitions where I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I add a physicality that actually feels like
strength.
Yeah, if I could compare that physically, it gives me something tangible of breaking through it.
Yeah, I like that. That's really great.
But that's
right
why exercise is so important because of that thing. And, you know, like living in San Francisco, I appreciated walking to work, burning that off, and walking home from work and being able to shut off other people's energies. And then being like on the tube, in close proximity to people with good music, it acclimates to true, authentic, like.
Well, you're somatically, so you're rewiring the brain both ways, right? So it's also like, this is also informing, like, I feel strong. I'm not just like thinking strong mental thoughts.
Like, be strong. It's like,
no,
I feel.
So then that.
A mental match to the spiritual, emotional, mental turmoil.
which reinforms the brain
which
as well. So it's like
reinforms
this
the brain.
Yeah.
You get
Positive feedback.
positive, physically, like all that. The positive dopamines, the strength
Benefits on
building.
benefits on benefits, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it is.
because I
It's
kind of want to end with this, is that at the end of this week, when we come to Monday, is this equinox in Libra, where we do change the seasons. And for those in Australia and the southern hemisphere, it's their spring, and we're going into our fall. And we're going to have the moon in Cancer on the north node, exactly opposed Saturn on the south node, which is ironic since these are both the home positions of both energies on the nodes. And so this is going to be part of the 6-month cycle, which is this moon opposed Saturn, which in astrology is a very difficult transit, but they're both in their home sign. So there's a little bit of this needing of self-care, but also having to show up and do the resistance training and do the show up. I think part of it is just when you brought up the stairs, like reminds me of at a race, like everybody knows I tend not to sleep a long time. So, and especially when Craig and I go, we're having fun and all this. And it's like, I go to bed at 4 a.m. and I'm supposed to be up at 7 and I'm supposed to be racing in the morning. Like 3 hours of sleep. And then I'm like racing. And all these guys go to bed at 10. They like do their whole workout thing with the eat things. And I'm like out there with my jewel or a cigarette, like, when's this race? But there's something about just showing up to that. I don't know. And that's when I do my best. Some people are different, but everybody has their own self-care routine. But we all just have to show up.
It's an action word.
And I think there is, if it's starting to feel harsh, because Saturn and Moon in opposition is harsh. Like when you go through that transit in your life, it's like, like it's very difficult. I had that one in 2015, 16, 14. It was hard. But I can tell you that what I learned from it was the ultimate strength of, like you were bringing up, Sarah, it wasn't my weakness, although the whole time I thought it was my weakness.
You feel weak the entire time you're building the
But
greatest
really,
strength.
you're building the strength emotionally at this next juncture point for the next 6 months, which this is an intense, insane week. I would put it up on the Richter scale of like in the top 3 weeks of intensity of the whole year. But it's pretty hard when you look at this year because there's so many. But this equinox has definitely got some pretty intense aspects that are really hitting relationships, cooperation, but more than relationships with all things, ourself, our emotions, showing up. And there is a lot of Mercury, Venus square Saturn, but there also is kind of Jupiter there in the to show this positive aspect when you go through the block, or rejection comes up as well. Venus square Saturn. It's like if something you go after is rejected, well, you can't own that. You have to turn that into, maybe it's not rejection, just maybe it's not in alignment.
Right. It's the same, like, yeah, there's just so many routes of how we can take all of this. And I think it's making the most out of everything that's happening and trusting it and honoring, like, and I was at a conversation this week, the phrase, and being an advocate for the psyche, and taking a moment to like take a time to zoom out for a minute and use the Saturn medicine of time, where it's like, okay, use time to actually go back and think about 2 years ago, if you were in the same situation, how would you have handled it? I bet you have gained strength in way more ways than you realize. Yeah. And to ask myself, like, how would I handle this with more skill? Because you have the skill. And in this moment, this initiation, this testing moment, it's like, I also think of Moon Saturn as investing in our support systems. And really now is the time to like get yourself set up with the support, with the containers, with the structure that's going to help guide you and call you forward. And we're in this new growth phase. And I think we have old patterns, but that's why we also have, therapists and coaches and friends, like authentic support. And I was going to say my final note is to just be mindful, like to give energy where it wants to be received, because we all deserve that. We all deserve to feel that feeling of when you're around people that smile to see you smile, that mirror that smile, and that like can't wait to hear you actually finish your sentence because they're like really listening to you. And we deserve to all like give ourselves permission to be around that and to conserve our energy for that, and to know that saying no is just as sacred as saying yes.
100%.
Yeah, there is no right or wrong with yes or no.
No, it's
Only
just
if it's not in alignment.
if it's not authentic.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it was a great conversation tonight, and I'm sending the
love
best
you,
for everyone on this
baby.
equinox.
Thanks for
They're big
having me.
points,
Yeah,
equinox points.
it's a big one.
And we
I
are
feel
switching
it.
seasons.
I've been feeling it, and I'm not versed like you guys in astrology, and you guys have this, you guys have been on your own, spiritual journey, and there's a lot of language I don't understand, but there is this vibrational thing that is really awesome for me to be here, and to get more of an understanding of something I feel like I've been innately.
I'm like, girl, you
Connected
understand. I don't know what you're talking
already,
about. She's got it.
I was going to say, anybody who's really open in their channel, their divine self to the divine, like you'll see. That's why I said, oh, look at this astrologer. Like you're tapped into the energy, and you'll notice that the energy is a reflection of the planets. So we're just speaking the language of the planets, but that doesn't mean that you're not understanding what's being.
Yeah, because you're tuned
But it's
in.
exciting for
You're
me to
tuned
get
into
more in
the
depth.
frequency
Like
of it.
you guys are like just like art and painting. My brushes are tools. You guys are teaching me new tools.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Of how
But we
to.
can totally look at
Yeah.
it and understand what you're doing and understand
Yeah.
the message and see it and feel it, but learn those extra things. Oh, I didn't know that. Well,
It's
look
all
at that.
symbolic.
It is.
It is.
And that's what
Yeah.
astrology
It's
really
all
is.
relative.
It's all
It
symbolic
really is.
interpretation.
Exactly. It just shows how we're all connected, and it's all relative.
It's beautiful.
Well, even like language, it's changing.
Yeah.
Words are
And that's
not
what makes
working.
me very excited about these times.
Yeah.
I really want to be able to give this visual language, like a new way for people to understand each other and understand life and connection and the beauty of imperfections and uniqueness and being original and accepting your own personal journey and stop listening to other people's narratives. And that's this is exciting times. I know, like, I've been feeling this. That's why I know that every time I was tested about my journey, that feeling of, no, you just gotta just keep it going,
Well, it was funny. I want to bring this up at the end. One of my friends, Christine Knight, we had a talk, and she was telling me about language and how, if you look at like Egypt, right, it was hieroglyphics, or even in Chinese, right, like it's not how we do
characters.
it's characters,
Yeah.
right, but it's also art. Like there's an art
Yeah.
to it. How funny in today's world we've moved to emojis now
Emojis.
and GIFs and
Right back to it.
Like we're going into that as language now again.
expression.
And and that blew my head. Like I was like, whoa! Like that one was pretty gnarly. I was like, whoa! Like even if you think about it, like we don't even want to text anymore. We're just talking to text now, or we're sending gifts and we're
sad
sending
face,
we're just being
memes.
like, we literally talking emojis now. Like we're
Crazy.
moving into the way the ancients spoke. It was not this
Because
really-
words are limiting right now.
yeah, they are. And I think breaking these, like I keep saying, unwritten laws. Because there's so many unwritten laws that are blocking us. And yeah, I just think right now blocks are good. And they are moments for you to just drive around the block, like instead of try to barrel down it, or just not drive around, but just, go down wherever the road says the block is blocking you from.
Yeah.
Like,
Reroute.
Okay, that's
Getting
the route.
rerouted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like detour.
And you're fine.
Yeah, right
You're
now
smart.
they're redoing the 405 here in
Yeah.
Huntington Beach,
Yeah.
and it's like every night Craig and I always get a text from Craig like, "Don't take the Golden West one, take Beach." Like he leaves because he always leaves before me, and I'm always like, "Oh, man, yeah, which one?" Like they're totally rerouting because they're redoing the whole thing here. So it's like, okay,
Yeah, you could sit in front of that detour sign and be like, why is this here? And when is it going
Right.
to be done? I work every day. And how long is this? No, you just keep it moving. Kim. Keep it moving. That's my motto.
What
Mic
a great
drop.
way to move it. Hey, everyone, keep it moving. And check
Keep
out
it
Kim Tabay on Instagram. She's definitely got so much. And you know what? I've been reposting a lot of people that have been doing her art. All of her art training is on High Vibe for free under free content. It's so amazing. You can find it on the website. You can find it on the app. And of course, Sarah Paasch here. You can find her on Instagram. She does so much great work with more than astrology. It's in every way. Shadow work, everything. Reach out to her to get sessions with her, training with her. She does coaching. Just it's awesome to have both of you on here. Tonight was such a great, positive, and really, I think, healing conversation for me and for, I think, a lot of others out there.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's been a tough couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just been in my feelings.
Yeah, you're rocking it,
But what's
though.
actually happening is actually beautiful,
beautiful.
things. Just like I'm here with you two beautiful people. So
Yeah.
I think
Thank you for
tribe,
affirming that.
actually, you know what, at the end of this, I just want to say tribe is something that is building right now.
yes.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate
cool.
of what this all is.
Yeah.
Tribe is building. And blocks keep you from the tribe. The roads that take you away from the tribe. If you break down the block, you know, like, oh,
Yes. I
like
was
it's going to pull you from the tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in your energy, that's supportive of you, and you're going to be all alone. And again, this goes in the aim, because Sag is where you aim, but sometimes with well, not sometimes, but when you aim, I'm going to use a very harsh example of realism. The last time this happened was in 1853, the last square of Jupiter and Neptune in their home signs. And this is where some people aim that, yeah, slavery is okay. And that, because Civil War came in the 1850s, right? On 1861, we went, but the battle about it and the build up towards it was during that whole period. And it was in 1852 that Uncle Tom's Cabin, the book, came out against slavery, but written by a white woman saying, like, hey, like, this isn't good. And there was a huge backlash against it, and oh no, it's okay, and da-da. And this is where people set their aim. And is this in divine, what feels compassionate and understanding and free into the infinite of universe, or does it feel restrictive and patterny and trapped? And I think that this is a moment for all of us to go, you know what? I'm not going to aim in a direction that causes anything to not be compassionate to all people, all things, and all energies around, and find that tribe of energy that's in that space. Because I don't think you want to be in the space where, sure, maybe you might, because it can be very easy to fall into the trap of the belief that it's so powerful right now. But if you look beyond the scope and you look behind the veil, underneath there's a bunch of, you know, weird little dinosaur goblins underneath there that want something else, you know, and you didn't see that. And that's a big reminder for people about this time, if we use history. So,
Yeah, no slavery.
no.
No.
Love you all very much. Thank you for being on highvibe.tv, and we'll see you on the app. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next After Dark.
Thank you.
Woo!